There's a great quote from Steve Jobs. I am more proud of what Apple hasn't done than what they've done. The problem I see with CPA firms, they try and be all things to all people. They just don't want to turn anything away because it's fee for service. The service subsumed the product. The experience subsumed the product and the service. Transformations are going to subsume the experience and the products and the services. And they're all going to be smashed together, but what the customer's really paying for are those transformations. Joe Pine is writing a new book. It's called The Transformation Economy. A lot of businesses latched onto it. And what we need to do is to sustain those transformations through time.
I'm thinking about this from the firm perspective, but also the clients of the firms. How should they be measuring success in a transformation economy?
You've been tuned in to AI Native Accounting, powered by Digits, the world's first autonomous general ledger. Unlock automation for bookkeeping, reporting, client collaboration, and more. Let Digits handle the tedium so you can focus on high-impact client services. See why AI Native Accounting starts with Digits. Try it for free today at digits.com.
Welcome to the AI Native Accounting Podcast presented by Digits. I'm your host, Kacee Johnson, principal at Be Radical, and I'm joined today by Ron Baker, co-founder of Threshold, a best-selling author and one of the most influential voices shaping the future of professional knowledge work. Ron, I'm so glad that you're here with us.
Kacee, I'm honored to be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've spent decades challenging the profession's assumptions about value, pricing, and the very nature of professional service. And thank you. You sent over in advance your latest thinking on the transformation economy. As always, I was inspired by your call, specifically around moving practitioners beyond services and towards human flourishing. I think we all need a bit more of that in this crazy world that we live in. But let's start with, help me understand what inspired Threshold for you and Ed.
What inspired Threshold was this move from the experience economy, which we've been in since roughly the 80s. I mean, you could date it back to Disneyland, but give or take, we're spending a lot more on experiences than we are, say, on products and services. We might save money buying products and services at Walmart, but then we go to a day spa and have a great experience, right? We indulge in something. And now we're moving into the transformation economy where we want businesses to help us change our identity. We want them to help us move from somewhere to somewhere. So from being, a meat eater to vegan, from smoker to non-smoker, overweight to Ozempic, all of that. And that's been the inspiration. And this was actually called out in a book from 1999. Now, I've written 8 business books, and I can tell you that the shelf life of a business book doesn't go back that far usually. But these guys laid out a progression of economic value. And it kind of stopped at the experience economy, but they did identify in that book in 1999 that there's one step higher, which is transformations. And that's when you change somebody. And it struck me when I read that, Kacee, in 1999, the CPAs already do this. We have been providing transformations our entire professional careers. We help people retire sooner. We help them grow their business. We help them get their kids into college. We help plan their legacies after they're gone. These are all transformations that are personal, effectual, bespoke to the individual customer. They move the customer from where they are to some desired future state, and yet we don't have the vocabulary. We emphasize efforts and hours and scope of work. And the services that we provide are just a means to the end. The ultimate end that the customer's buying are those transformations. And that's why we're so excited about the possibilities of this.
I love the examples that you give there. And I'm curious, like the sociology part of it, of what is changing us as humans to want products, companies to do that transformation rather than us doing the transformation on our own.
It's really interesting because if you lay out the progression of economic value the way they did in the book, And I know this is a podcast, so it's hard to construct a visual, but it's actually a kind of like a step ladder moving up and to the right, like on a graph. And it starts with commodities, the agricultural economy. I mean, you could go back to hunter gatherer, but that wasn't really a market. We didn't exchange, we didn't trade and barter and truck with each other. But the agricultural economy was the first time that a farmer could grow more food than they needed just to feed them and their family. So they sold the surplus in the market. And that was the agricultural economy. That's when you extract commodities. You grow corn, maize. Eventually, we started pulling oil and timber and all of that. And then we moved up to the industrial economy. It was all about making products on a mass scale, efficiencies, economies of scale. We made automobiles, the Model T. We made home appliances, all at incredible volumes and with great efficiencies. The cost came down like a rock. Then companies started to ask, well, what happens when your products become commoditized? Well, if you can wrap a service around your product, now you get more pricing power, you get more differentiation in the market. And so in the 1920s, believe it or not, we started to enter the service economy. Most people date it in the 60s or the 80s. It's actually the 20s when the service economy and the service worker sector started to grow. People that didn't make goods, people like bank tellers and waiters and waitresses in restaurants and insurance adjusters, people that didn't build things. And then the question becomes, what happens when your service becomes a commodity? And we hear this in accounting all the time, right? The audit's a commodity, the tax return's a commodity. I've been hearing this my whole professional life. And to some extent, it's true. Things do get commoditized. It's like the law of gravity. It's pushing down prices constantly, competition and all of that, and certainly AI and efficiencies and all of that. But then the question becomes, well, how do you decommoditize a service? Well, you wrap an experience around it. Think Disney World, think some of these incredible vacations that Disney does. Think about themed restaurants, Rainforest Cafe or Planet Hollywood, Las Vegas, a big experience, right? The Sphere and all of that. Taylor Swift concerts. But what happens when the experience becomes a commodity? Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And they said in this book in 1999 that, well, the next level is the transformation economy. And that's when you guide the customer from where they are to some desired future state. And at that point, the customer's the product. Products and services, all we can do with them is say, look what we can do, look what we can do. And that's our marketing, that's our messaging. When you go out with transformational economy messaging, you say to the customer, look at who you can become. That's far more powerful, that's far more differentiated, and it's far more valuable. Thus, it commands a higher price.
Interesting. And I'm curious in your concert, because, I just took my 14-year-old and her girlfriend to a Mega Maroney concert on Friday, which 10,000 screaming high school girls, and they left and I sat there just kind of, I'm not a Meg Maroney fan, like, oh my gosh, this is the longest concert. But we walked out of there and their smiles and they were like, this was the best night of my life, right? That experience that they walked away from, and they would go back again and again. So when you translate that into more B2B and in a profession like ours, how do the practitioners get to that level of experience and transformation?
Right. And this was my problem when I first saw this in 1999. I put us clearly in the service economy camp. And I said, gee, I don't know how a CPA firm could create a great experience like Disney. What are we supposed to do? Put a piano in the lobby or, so I was stuck. But I recognized that transformations were something that we were already doing, but I didn't know what to do with it. Well, now, since Joe Pine is writing a new book, and it's coming out in February, it's called The Transformation Economy. It's going to be another worldwide bestseller. The Experience Economy sold millions and millions of copies worldwide. And it really did kind of give a great push to the experience economy. A lot of businesses latched onto it and started to create better experiences for their brand, more immersive and, in real life experiences. And the transformation economy, what we need to do and what we are privileged to be able to do because of our position as a trusted advisor is to sustain those transformations through time. Your daughter's memory of that concert may fade over time, but with a transformation, you're actually changing the identity of the person. And that's got to be sustained through time because, as you can imagine, going from smoker to non-smoker, you may fall off the wagon, right? And we have to be the guide to make sure that those good financial habits are sustained through time. But the other thing that we're really advantaged and blessed to be able to do as professionals is serial transformations. We can do one after the other, and we can do them from womb to tomb, helping the kid get in college when he's born, helping them plan their legacy after they're dead, and everything in between, not only for the people that own the business, but also the business itself. We can do transformational things inside the business and inside personal lives. And that's the highest spot on the value curve that you can get to. And that's why Ed and I are so excited by this, because I think our profession needs to stop talking about scope of work, services, God forbid, productizing services. That's a step down. It's a step backwards to productize a service. A service is always more valuable than a product. And we don't want to go backwards by productizing services. I want to climb up and move into transformations because we're already doing them. We just need to get better at it.
You always walk away. I walk away with like the best quotes from you. The new one's womb to tomb. I love it. You argue though, in the latest revelations that the greatest value professionals create is transformative and not technical, which we know CPAs, they're very focused on the technical. I mean, that if you look at conferences and where they flock, it's to that content. What does the shift look like in a firm at the culture level and in their client relationships to get to this point?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it's difficult. There's nothing easy about this at all. It's a challenge. But so is going to the moon. So is training for the Olympics. So is passing the CPA exam or the bar exam. I mean, nothing in life is, we weren't built for comfort as humans. We were built for challenge. And what we need to understand is our customers are not buying our services. They're buying our guidance, our wisdom, to take them to a new place, to change them, and to help them flourish in the areas of, we all have universal aspirations. Everybody on the planet has aspirations in the areas of health, being healthier, wealthier, wiser, and living with purpose and meaning. I think those aspirations are universal. And we can probably help with the wiser. We can probably help with the wealthier and the more prosperous. I even think we can contribute to health by making people's financial lives a little bit smoother and take some of that anxiety that it creates away, helping their business run better. So we can contribute to human flourishing. And we believe that in the transformation economy, it's very apparent that the raison d'etre of business is human flourishing. If a business is not contributing to human flourishing, it's a racket. If the only purpose of a business was profit, Kacee, we could start meth labs. Be a heck of a lot easier than running, an accounting firm, but it wouldn't contribute to human flourishing. So that's what we think the transformation economy does really well.
It's almost like a call for greatness across these firms and across the profession. But you talked a little bit about the health, though, of folks. Now we know across the profession that there's a capacity crunch. In the paper, you diagnose burnout not as fatigue, but as moral injury that's caused by business models that betray our professional duty. How do you see that fitting in to, or how do you see the billable hour fitting into that critique? Because I'm sure you've been educating on this topic for so long, And there's still a lot of firms that, even if they're doing value-based pricing, they're still tracking the billable hours. So how does that fit in?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think the burnout diagnosis, and look, my mind has been changed on this just in the last few years. In my latest book, Time's Up, I actually talk about burnout. And I even cite a study that said, 51% of doctors are burnt out. And there's certain diagnoses for burnout. There's depersonalization, exhaustion, and reduced personal accomplishment at work. It's not an official disease yet, like in the statistical manual, the diagnostic statistical manual, but it's been pretty well diagnosed to have these certain symptoms. And the problem with it is we've been talking about burnout since the 1970s. We haven't moved the needle at all. So maybe the diagnosis is wrong. It's not burnout that we are suffering as professionals. It's moral injury. And moral injury is essentially not living your purpose. It's a term that comes from the military. It kind of came out of the Vietnam War, but it's not living your purpose and meaning. And I think the fee-for-service business model, whether it's hourly billing or even to some extent value pricing, we only get paid when we do something. It's fee-for-service, just like doctors. A doctor in a regular practice, like say a general physician, only gets paid when they do something to you. A diagnostic test, an office visit, consultation, some type of an exam, because it's all fee-for-service. There's 10,000 billing codes they have to deal with. I think that's wrong. I think that's what creates the moral injury, because this isn't why we became professionals. What I ultimately want to do, and I'll drop a bomb on you, I want to endow the role, not the ritual. Imagine if a priest or a rabbi walked around with a price list and said, "Oh, you want me to officiate a wedding? Here's the price. You want me to preside over your funeral? Here's the price. You want me to hear confession? Here's the price." This would be insanity. Why not endow the role so the priest is available to do things for you when you need them? And that's why we think the subscription model is much better than even value pricing and certainly hourly billing, because it's looking at customer lifetime value and not the transactions. It's not looking at the math of the moment, the margin of the moment. It's looking at customer lifetime value. So it endows the role. It makes sure the firm is there to do whatever the customer needs that the firm does. You have to, and this is where you have to stay in your lane. And I know you as a former marketer understand this better than I do, but specialization is really important here. A firm is defined by the services it doesn't, or the things it doesn't offer and the customers it doesn't serve. You're defined by what you don't do, period. You really are. Because think about it. We all know what a general physician's capable of doing, but more importantly, we know what they're not capable of doing. I'm not going to go to them for heart surgery, to replace my knee, or for oncology services. They can take me to a specialist and, quarterback the relationship, but they're not going to do that work. The problem I see with CPA firms, they try and be all things to all people. They just don't want to turn anything away because it's fee for service. More fees, more services, more hours, more income. It's like if CPAs were veterinarians, I think their sign outside would say veterinarian taxidermist. That way they could say, either way, you get your cat back.
I couldn't agree more that you can't do everything and do it well. And it is so important just at a strategic level for the leadership of what we're not going to do. And they focus so much on what they are going to do, but not on what they're not going to do.
There's a great quote from Steve Jobs, and he said it in multiple places and multiple times. I am more proud of what Apple hasn't done than what they've done. And I had to rewind that the first time I saw it, and watch it. What did he just say? I mean, the guy's revolutionized 6 industries, from computers to the iPhone to animated movies with Pixar. But what he was saying is, because we're so focused, we only do things that we can be world class at and better than everyone else. And so we have to say no to a lot of smart people who work for us when they come to us with ideas, because if we can't be world class at it, we have to say no. That's what he was talking about. And that makes so much sense.
I'm curious, not just what role do you think the AI systems will play here in the transformation economy, but I heard a quote from you, and it rang so true for me, especially when you're looking at it for the way that everybody's talking about AI in the profession right now. And you essentially were saying, stop talking about AI making your teams more efficient. They're not machines. Like, focus on them making them more effective in what they do. So unpack some of this for us.
Yeah, this is affectionately referred to in VeriSage, or the ex-VeriSage, it's no longer around, as the effing debate. Efficiency versus effectiveness. And, efficiency, it's like motherhood and apple pie. Nobody can attack efficiency because it's crazy. Everybody, we need to be more efficient. Well, I'm going to attack it because efficiency is just a stupid metric. It's a mindless metric. Outputs divided by inputs. And I live in Sonoma County, and the wine growers in this region have a great saying. It's easier to count the bottles than to describe the wine. So efficiency is just a mindless metric, a ratio. But effectiveness is doing the right thing. And doing the right thing requires judgment. Now, this doesn't mean that we're anti-efficient. I'm going to draw a distinction here between being efficient with things and being efficient with people. So we can be efficient with things. We can fly on the Dreamliner, and airlines get 40% fuel savings on that thing. It's an amazing airplane. I'm all for that. We can use AI to help us do repeatable, processable tasks, and it's creating incredible efficiencies. And I love all that. However, my question is, what are you going to do with the freed up time? If all you're doing with that freed up time is going out and getting more repeatable, easily processed tasks that AI can do, you're not really growing, right? I want us to take the time saved that AI does, that it gives us, and move up the value curve to transformations, because I'm hoping that AI gives us more time to be human. And AI cannot guide a transformation. That takes a human being, like a Sherpa or a Yeti. Nobody's going to bring ChatGPT as they climb Mount Everest, right? I mean, they might look at it ahead of time, but they're going to want a Sherpa or some type of guide. And that's what I'm hoping our profession becomes. I think that's our true calling. Right now with AI, Kacee, I think we're playing small ball. All we're talking about is workflow and increasing efficiency by 10%. Okay, great. All wonderful. But again, what is our economic offering to the customer? I don't think it's services anymore. I think it should be transformations.
It's reminding me a lot. So at Be Radical, we do these exercises of build your killer competitor, like who would put you out of business kind of thing. And it would be interesting to run that activity. What's his name? Jeff Woods wrote the book about like an AI driven leader, but his whole point is using AI as your thought partner and having it ask you questions to get to new ideas, right? So I'm curious if you thought 10 years into the future, which sounds so far because I feel like we can't even think 18 months in the future, but what would this transformation of a firm, like what would be the killer competitor firm to you?
I think the killer competitor is a firm that messages and markets and offers transformations, and they realize that the services are just a means to that ends. In other words, as you move up let me give you a great little short example of this, of moving up the progression of economic value. So if you go back to the 1900s, if mom and dad are making little Johnny or Susie a birthday cake, they're probably going to have all the raw ingredients. They might even get the chicken, from the egg from the chicken outside, right? And they're going to bake the cake from scratch kind of thing. In the 20s or 30s, they went down to the grocery store and they bought Duncan Hines or Betty Crocker cake mix, and then maybe just had to crack an egg in it. So that's moving from agricultural to mass-produced products with the cake mix. in the 50s, maybe 60s, they went down to the bakery and bought a sheet cake for the child and probably had it engraved, happy birthday with frosting. And in the 80s, in the experience economy, Chuck E. Cheese comes along and says, no, don't worry about that. If you throw your kid's birthday party here, we'll give you the cake. So notice what's happening here. As you move up each level, the prior level is subsumed. It's called subsummation. Just like when the iPhone came out, Verizon said, we'll give you the iPhone, sign up for our service. The service subsumed the product. The experience subsumed the product and the service. Transformations are going to subsume the experience and the products and the services. And they're all going to be smashed together, but what the customer's really paying for are those transformations. Kind of like when Fender sells a guitar, the CEO of Fender is now very aware that Fender doesn't sell guitars. They sell musicianship. And that's why Fender Play, their digital library that can teach you how to play the guitar from scratch at any level that you aspire to, beginner, intermediate, expert, probably rock star. That's what's transforming their customers and driving people to their brand and keeping them loyal, having them buy more over time. They're not selling guitars, they're selling musicianship. That's a different way of looking at the world.
Yeah, and the client 100%. I want to get into two kind of little pet peeves of mine right now with firms and AI, and it's more at the leadership and just kind of almost how they even value themselves. Like it's almost like they're underconfident of themselves. So two things. One is thinking about, again, with AI and its impact on hourly billing, it's almost like is this going to accelerate the collapse of the billing, the hourly model, or is this risking like entrenching it further? Because I hear firms saying, well, if we apply AI, then we're just going to do more faster, right? And then the second part of that is also, and this is just like, it drives me nuts. It's like they have this fear of, well, if the client sees that we're using all of this AI, then they're going to want to pay us less. Just like, why are we, is this a lack of confidence in our own value of why we're hearing this so much from these firms?
Yeah, it's that, and I think a whole lot more. It's just that the billable hour is so entrenched in our DNA. And what I hear a lot is this word, I think of the word when I hear this from firms, it's called satisfice. And it's a combination of satisfy and sufficient. In other words, the billable hour is good enough. Everybody understands it. Our customers understand it. Our legacy systems are built around it. Our measurements and KPIs are built around it. Sure, the customer may complain. They may not like the unpredictability of it. So we'll give them a discount if if the wheel squeaks, but it's good enough. And I've been saying for 30 some odd years, no, it's not good enough. We're better than this. Your business model reveals what you revere. It's never neutral. And I do not revere the billable hour as a CPA. And I don't want my customers to think that they're buying my time, because they're not buying our time. They're buying what we can do for them, the outcomes or the transformations that we can guide them through. And I do worry about this. If the billable hour survives AI, then the damn thing is invincible. And I don't know how to kill it, because I've been trying to kill it for 30 some odd years. And if it doesn't die because of AI, I don't know what will bring it down, because AI eats hours. So all we're going to do is carry it's the donkey strategy. We're just going to carry a heavier load, work more, and, we'll do more in less time, but our prices are going to collapse if we continue to charge by the hour, unless our hourly rates go up to $10,000 an hour, because GPT can do something in 5 minutes that took you 3 hours.
So Ron, could AI make it possible to measure outcomes or transformations in new ways, or maybe surface some that firms wouldn't even have thought of on their own?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Certainly AI has helped us construct transformations lay out milestones, even create experiences around them. I haven't seen new metrics because of transformations, but I have no doubt they'll come. Kind of like the Net Promoter Score is more of a leading indicator than looking at your traditional financial KPIs, because they're all lagging, right? I mean, to run your business off KPIs is like timing your cookies with your smoke alarm. It's too late by the time you see them. So we need more leading indicators, and maybe AI can help us with that. It can posit theories, but we still need to test them as humans to see if they have any scientific validity, or any causal validity to what we're trying to measure with customer loyalty. But if you look at some of the KPIs around subscription businesses, they've done a really good job trying to figure out customer and model customer lifetime value. They, of course, look at churn rate, which is right on your income statement. So even the income statement's different, and they just force you to think about customer lifetime value. And we need to move away from the math of the moment. Are we profitable on this job, or profitable on this customer, or more absurdly, profitable with this hour? We've got to take a portfolio approach. And that's why I'm kind of enamored with this idea of endowing the role of the CPA rather than the specific rituals or services that we provide. Our overall role is to guide transformations.
In the Revelations, you also argued that profit is the applause, not the performance. And so I want to get into a little bit. Another big transformation, obviously, in the profession outside of just AI and technology is PE and the impacts that private capital are having on these firms, not just even the big firms, but firms of all sizes. So how do firms keep this hierarchy clear when AI is promising efficiency gains, but investors and PE firms are pushing for margin expansion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I know PE firms are very interested in EBITDA, and margin and realization and utilization. They seem to be doubling down on the old business model. When they first came into the profession, I was kind of excited because I saw what they did with like car wash companies or HVAC companies. They would go in and buy these mom and pop businesses, but they would change their business model. You're probably subscribed to your car wash place in your neighborhood, right? For $30 a month, and you can get your car washed as many times as you want. Same with your HVAC. You pay them and they come out within, a day if you're a member type of thing. But what they seem to be doing in accounting is they seem to be doubling down on billable hours, realization, utilization, and margin, and trying to do all the traditional metrics. If that's true, and I hope it's not, but I have not seen evidence to the contrary, because I read these Reddit forums, I read Going Concern, I read other places where you can hear actual employees that work in these firms say all they seem to care about is billable hours, then all they're doing, Kacee, is they're consecrating moral injury.
In shittification, right?
Absolute shittification, another great word. But yeah, and I'm really worried about that, and I think the jury's still out. And the other thing that scares me is a profession can't be priced; it must be pledged. We're professionals. That when you don the mantle of physician or lawyer or CPA, that's not just what you do; that's who you are, and it's a calling, and you can't price that. That must be pledged, and this is why people are more loyal to their profession than they are to any one firm inside the profession. And I worry about PE's effect because unless they change the business model, I see it just failing on a bigger scale as they roll up and, create bigger firms and hyper growth. I think growth for the sake of growth is the ideology of the cancer cell. On its own, it's meaningless unless the growth is strategic and has a purpose behind it. I don't want to grow just to grow. That's crazy. I don't want to be bigger just to be bigger. I want to be better.
Yeah, I'm big on like early signal spotting, and the way that you're describing this makes me think about, probably 5 to 10 years ago in the healthcare industry with insurance. And if you talk to doctors today, about their practices or how handcuffed they are with treating their patients. One of my best friends is a neurosurgeon, and it's just heartbreaking, some of the stories I hear. It almost sounds like you see that, but like at an early level, an early stage.
Absolutely. The doctors, what's really interesting, and one of the reasons you can't look at what PE did to the medical profession and compare it to what they could potentially do for accounting, is because the medical profession, they're the only profession that can't price their own services. They are subject to 10,000 or more billing codes, either from government, Medicare, Medicaid, that type of thing, or private insurance. And that's why they're on this fee-for-service treadmill. Now, the smart doctors have opted out of the system and created concierge practices or direct primary care physicians. This was the big thing in my latest book, Time's Up. I actually pointed to the medical profession, the concierge and DPC doctors, and said, that's our model, because they're practicing medicine the way they wanted to when they entered the profession. They're not on this fee-for-service treadmill. You pay them $100 to $300 a month if they're a DPC doctor, and they'll do anything that you require when you require it that a general physician can do. So there's the scope. Whatever a GP can do, they're not going to do what they can't do, even if the customer asks for it. And then, of course, there's concierge doctors that go after the top 5%, 10% income earners, wealth holders. And they could be anywhere from $12,000 a year to $50,000 a year. And these doctors all run with less capacity. A DPC doc only has 600 patients, whereas the normal GP doctor has 2,400, which is why you get to spend 5 minutes with them, because they have to see 50 or 60 people a day. But a DPC doc doesn't even have a waiting room. Their average appointment times are an hour. They keep their patients out of the hospital, out of ERs. They take less drugs. They have less comorbidities and a longer lifespan and quality of life years. And there's roughly 2,500 of these DPC docs in all 50 states. Every one of them has a waiting list. Somebody has to die or move before you can get in. And they are flourishing. They are flourishing, and they're completely away from the standard medical model. I think that is our future. And by the way, that started in 1996 with the first concierge doctor. He was the team doctor for the Seattle Sonics basketball team. A guy named Howard Moran started MD Squared, which is the largest concierge practice in the United States. And when he started it, charging $24,000 a year to a married couple, everybody told him, all the experts, this will never work. Nobody's going to pay that. That's insane. People have insurance, blah, blah, blah. Just like people, doubted Walt Disney with Disneyland. He didn't listen. He charged ahead. And he revolutionized the profession. And I think we need to follow that model because it's been empirically proven.
So how would a firm leader reconcile this, it's almost a dichotomy, but this profit and purpose so that we can get to that force of human flourishing and not just cost cutting for the board?
Yeah, the great thing about the transformation economy, and I probably should have said this earlier, but it's not just a new business model. This is a new economic era. It's as substantial as moving out of the agricultural economy into the industrial economy, and then from there into the service economy. These were massive economic shifts in the underlying structure of the economy and in its foundation. And so this isn't just a business model like subscription versus value pricing versus hourly billing. This is a new economic epic, and it's not going to really care whether or not you want to adjust to it or not. If you're a buggy whip manufacturer and Henry Ford comes out with the Model T, you've got to do some thinking because you're about to be just made irrelevant unless you go into the, carriage business for the Queen. So I think firms are going to have to grapple with this because we're already seeing the transformation economy all over the place. I could give you 100 examples from 20 different industries that companies are starting to message around, look at who you can become rather than just what our product or service does for you. And I think it's exciting because I think we're already there. We just don't realize it because we're so caught up in billable hours, scope of work, profit margin per customer, per hour, per job. We need to get away from that and move to subscription so we can build lifetime customer value and we can provide and offer serial transformations to our customers, again, from womb to tomb.
I love that. So how should, and I'm thinking about this from the firm perspective, but also the clients of the firms, how should they be measuring success in a transformation economy?
Well, let me give you one more little framework inside the transformation economy. To the extent that we're going to measure time in this profession, it should be the customer's time. Because if you think about the customer's time, first off, we certainly don't want to waste it. I think the biggest sin in business today is to waste the customer's time. You waste my time, I'm done with you. You put me on a phone tree where I have to jump through 70 things before I get to a human being, I'm done. Absolutely done. You send me a 400-page tax organizer, done. I mean, if I could fill that thing out, I wouldn't need to hire a CPA. So we need to stop wasting the customer's time. And that means creating better experiences and all of that. But we also need to save them time. And if you think about products and services, they save us time. This is why we have washing machines and dishwashers, and you don't change the oil in your own car, and you gardener mows your lawn. The products and services are great time savers, which is why they were the foundation of the economy for so long. Experiences are time well spent. So when you took your daughter to that concert, that was time well spent. You probably had a great time, even though you weren't a big fan, just watching your daughter have a great time. This is why we take our family to Disney World and, take out a fifth mortgage to do so because it's so expensive. So we can create time well spent with our customers by making sure every interaction, whether it's in real life or virtual like this, they walk away from that and they go, wow, that was a really enjoyable conversation. My CPA asked me a question I've never been asked before, or pointed me in a new direction, or gave me something to think about. Whatever it is, time well spent. But then transformations, Kacee, are time well invested. And that means the client is not only going to invest their time with you to help guide them, but they're also going to invest their own time on their own time without you around in making sure that transformation succeeds. And that's what we should be measuring. We should be measuring the customer's time, how much time we save them, how much time do they spend with us, and how much time do they invest in us to guide these transformations. And I think from that framework, we'll drop some metrics out that will give us some KPIs to look at, kind of like a net promoter score that can be predictive of whether or not we're flourishing and our customers are flourishing in the transformation economy.
Well, and I love that about even with your FaceTime with your clients, but thinking how valuable is that time and what were you delivering to them that they couldn't get out of whatever AI system or ChatGPT or something that technology couldn't deliver to them, right?
Right. And that doesn't mean we can't have technology in the background. We call GPT and Perplexity and all the other ones that we piddle around with, we call it our intern. Run that by it's like having a really, really, really smart intern that never needs a break. But I don't buy the fear that it's going to take away jobs. I mean, in the Revelation, we point out that the word for work and worship and service are all the same in Hebrew. It's avodah. And we will always find ways to serve one another. So if AI can make our world easier by taking away all the drudgery like washing the dishes or doing your laundry, fantastic. Then that'll free us up to move up the value curve and guide these transformations. And I think that it is really exciting. So I have future glee about where the professions could head if we stop playing small ball and start having grander visions about who we are. We're a profession. We need to profess something, which means publicly avow it, put a line in the sand. And that's why Ed and I wrote the Revelation. That's our line in the sand. That's what we want to see for the professions moving forward.
Well, beautifully said. And is it okay if we attach that to the show notes?
Absolutely, and I can even give you the progression of economic value, so people can see it. Because I think when you see it visibly, it's stark. It really is. It's like, wow, it completely makes sense if you just think back on our economic history from agricultural up to service economy, and then of course the experience economy, which we've all been in. But now we are entering the transformation economy. And once people see it, it's kind of like, when you buy a red Volkswagen, you never saw them anywhere before, but now you see them all over because it's kind of on your radar. There's a biased name for that. I forget what it is, but it's the same thing. And because Joe Pine has been writing a book on this, and he's got a Substack, and you subscribe to it, and he's been throwing out the chapters as he's been writing it. So Ed and I have been marinating in this for over a year and a half, reading his book, offering feedback, going on Zoom calls with him, and he's really thinking through this really well. And I'm just incredibly excited by it. I don't even want to talk about value pricing anymore. I want to talk about transformations because that's the future.
Well, you just answered my next question, which was who's inspiring you and who are you reading? Joe Pine.
Yeah, Joe Pine. Joe Pine would be the answer. His book, The Transformation Economy, which is coming out. I will give you one more since this is an AI podcast, and I apologize. I haven't talked much about AI, but I just read a book, Where is My Flying Car? It's by a physicist by the name of J. Storrs Hall, who also works in AI. It was absolutely fascinating. Even if you're steeped in technology, you will learn a lot about the origins of the flying car and a whole bunch of other technology. It's not just about cars. And it's just really interesting. He's also calling for us to go back to the days when, we wanted to go to the moon. Elon Musk wants to go to Mars. We need these grand visions. This is the new frontier for us. Otherwise, what are we doing? We're just playing small ball. I don't want to play small ball. I want to do something big, difficult, and hard. We do these things because they're hard. That's why we do them.
100%. So, two more. Feel like Ron Baker, we get to know, but I want to know like personal Ron Baker. Two questions. What's an AI tool or app that you use personally, not in business, that you can't imagine your life without now?
Oh, wow. I guess most people would say Siri, but I think Siri's pretty lousy. I play with all of them. I play with GPT, Perplexity are probably the two biggest that I play with, and I'm astonished at what they can do. I help them. They have helped me compose emails or figure out travel plans or what. I just think this technology is amazing. I'm in awe of it. I really am. It's the calculator was numbers, and yeah, that was cool. But this is like a calculator for language, and language is something that's deeply human. We're the only ones that have language. Animals don't have language, and the fact that this thing can spit language back at you kind of makes it human. So we even call it intern or whatever, or we say it's thinking. When you ask it to do a deep answer, and I'm thinking, it's not thinking, but we've humanized it to some extent, and I find that kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And what is a passion of yours outside of accounting or economics that helps you to recharge?
Reading. I love history, love World War II, World War, some of the other wars. I love travel, obviously. I like politics, political junkie. Unfortunately, it's probably a waste of time, but I really like driving. So my buddy who lives up in Oregon, he's also a CPA, Dan Morris. He's a member of the Porsche Club. So I'll go up there with him, and I'll either ride with him and be his navigator on these Porsche drives, or I'll just drive up there myself and drive around the beautiful state of Oregon, and on these drives that they do sometimes for 3 or 4 days, and they are just a blast. Great people, great food, great scenery, and a lot of fun breaking the law on the road.
It's one of the states that has speed limits, right?
Yes.
You got to do that on your next trip to Germany, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. The Autobahn.
Yes. Well, Ron joined us in between a trip to London and then now one coming up to Morocco. So I know you are a busy man, but greatly appreciate you joining us. Your work continues to challenge the profession to think bigger. And I appreciate that. And I know that the listeners will be rethinking their mindsets after today. So thank you, Ron.
Awesome. Thank you, Kacee.
And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you want to explore AI native accounting for your own firm, visit digits.com for more information. Stay tuned for more episodes of the AI Native Accounting Podcast. Until next time, stay curious and stay ahead.
You've been tuned in to AI Native Accounting, powered by Digits, the world's first autonomous general ledger. Unlock automation for bookkeeping, reporting, client collaboration, and more. Let Digits handle the tedium so you can focus on high-impact client services. See why AI Native Accounting starts with Digits. Try it for free today at digits.com.